Hey guys, it's Dani. Today I really just wanted to show you one of the most beautiful orchids that I have. Look at her. We're gonna get to her. Some of you might know who she is. I showed you her in a previous video when she wasn't in bloom yet. Now she's in bloom. So I will show you this orchid and talk a little bit about her, but also I will show you a few other things. Not everything is good, or I don't know, it's confusing. My eternal issue. You're gonna see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm gonna show you a few other stuff together with this wonderful Phalaenopsis orchid, because yes, she is a beautiful Phalaenopsis. Now you might be tempted to say, let me just give you a close-up. You might be very tempted to say, this is a Phalaenopsis, the Tradfir C1. And you wouldn't be right, but you wouldn't be far. This is a hybrid of that orchid, because if you look closely, I think you can tell it's not a Tetraspis. It doesn't have red on its flower. Yes, it is an orchid that inherited the wonderful trait of the Phalaenopsis Tetraspis to always bloom differently. And by that I mean to alternate petals and sepals within the color range of white and red in the case of Phalaenopsis Tetraspis. But with this one, I hope you can see the alternation is with purple, and it's a very deep purple. It's a beautiful royal purple, if I do say so myself. So just like with the Phalaenopsis Tetraspis, flowers can actually look different from bloom to bloom. This time, apparently, it produced 3 white petals and 2 purple petals in this particular order, but this will not necessarily happen again with the next flower. The next flower could be all white or all purple, or 4 purple petals and 1 white, or whatever combination. Also, can we see we have a little bit of purple in the middle as well? That might change as well. It's not necessary that we're gonna have those 2 purple dots. If you look on the sepal, it doesn't appear. Now, I don't know this orchid very well, so I don't know if those 2 tiny purple dots, lighter purple, might actually appear on those petals all the time. I don't know, but I don't think so, because the Phalaenopsis Tetraspis doesn't have this trait. It can actually create little dots instead of a completely red petal. It can also create half a petal red and half white. It's always different. It's always quite an interesting pattern that you're gonna get. And yeah, sure, you can always have pure white flowers. I had it happen numerous times with Phalaenopsis Tetraspis, and I'm sure it's going to happen with this one as well. I didn't tell you the name, but I will make sure to put the tag on the screen. This is Phalaenopsis Leoline Blue Jenny crossed with Leoline Blue Jenny. It might be a crossed self type of an orchid. I'm not entirely sure if it's a clone. It might be, because these types of traits usually don't show in all of the individuals of the same seed batch, let's call it like that. So orchids that present incredible traits like this are usually clones. That being said, again, I'm not 100% sure, because I did not obtain this plant. I actually received it from a wonderful, wonderful viewer, and I'm very, very happy to have it. Now, this of course is a polychilous type orchid. Let me just show you her. You might know from a different video that I had a few spider mites on this one, and this is just the damage. I've treated it in the meantime and everything is okay. This is damage as well, and these are secondary infections, but the new leaf looks good. Yeah, she could do with a little bit of water. She's a little dehydrated. So being that it's a polychilous type of Phalaenopsis, it means that it blooms mostly in the warm seasons. If you live in an area with predominantly warm temperatures, you can have an alternation of flowers all year round with vegetative growth. But typically in more temperate or cooler environments, these types of orchids will bloom in the warmer months. I do actually have a full tutorial on polychilous type Phalaenopsis, which I will add to you down below. They are very easy to care for in a home. They're just like Phalaenopsis, but they are a little bit different, so your expectations should be different as well. From these orchids, generally you will not have a cascade of blooms, but you will have waxy flowers and beautiful color combinations and patterns and surprises. of sorts, plus fragrance. Now, this particular one doesn't actually have a fragrance. Let me sniff her again just to be sure, but so far I didn't detect anything. Yeah, I really cannot say I detect anything. Maybe the Phalaenopsis tetraspis has a sort of mango scent to it, if I remember correctly. This one doesn't. I do not detect anything. If there is a bit of a scent with this orchid that didn't develop yet, it's definitely not a Bellina type of scent. I would not get my hopes high that this is like the Violacea or the Bellina. So if you want to purchase this orchid, purchase it for the wonderful pattern and, you know, the blooms pretty much, how they look, not the fragrance. And while yes, many polychilous types of Phalaenopsis do have fragrances and they pass them on hybrids, some just don't. Some have bad fragrances, like the Amboinensis. Yeah, so no fragrance is better than a bad fragrance, I would say. So yeah, other than that, this orchid just takes just the care that any other polychilous type Phalaenopsis takes. She's not any different in any way, and as I get adjusted to it, I can better tell you if it produces like compact flowers, or rather compact flower spikes or not. The tetraspis has a tendency sometimes to grow those flower spikes to no end, but I'm hoping this one will not. I can say that the flower is bigger than the Phalaenopsis tetraspis, and hopefully you can tell it is bigger. I'm hoping the flower spikes will be more compact as well. In any case, she is a beautiful, beautiful orchid. If you're into purples, just look at this contrast. She is absolutely wonderful. The fuzzy lip remains, which is a trait of the tetraspis as well. So if you liked that feature, and I do, there she is. And if you see this orchid, give it a go. I think you will absolutely enjoy it because she's really not in any way different, as long as you don't expect fragrance, you know. Other than that, I think she's absolutely gorgeous, and it's a great first bloom. This is the first time it actually blooms. It's a younger orchid. All right, let's do a bit of an update on the bulbophyllums, because we didn't see them in a while. So as some of you might know, I grow mine in pots or containers that do not have drainage, because it doesn't matter. These guys are so thirsty and my environment is so warm that many times I do have issues keeping these guys hydrated. So they've been in here for about 2 years at this point, or less. Let me check. 24. Oh, no, 2 years. So as we can tell, some of them are already climbing out of the bowl, and I will have to do something about them. But some are not. Some are still comfortable how they are, and they have been blooming on and off all of this time. I removed many of the flower spikes on this guy, but it continuously blooms. This is the Mastercianum. This is the, it's the daisy chain. And this is the only one that's delaying its bloom. I don't like how it's climbing because the roots simply do not touch the medium, and these guys are thirsty. So this one might need a bit of an intervention just to make sure that the roots of this growth are in contact with water, because I don't like what's going on here. This is the Medusae, or Medusa. It's one of the prettiest bulbophyllums out there, and he doesn't want to bloom. I'm betting you it's because, yeah, it's getting a little dehydrated since the roots are so up in the air. Might have to intervene with this one. It's a bit of a climber, isn't he? Yeah. But everybody else is actually doing great. And yeah, I need to do two things. This one can be left alone, but this one definitely needs a bigger bowl if I'm gonna go for the bowl idea, which, you know, with the bulbophyllums, it is a good idea to find shallower pots or containers because they really don't have deep roots, and as you can see, they do sprawl. So you will actually need something rather wide than deep. So I'm probably gonna find a shallow bowl of sorts. So that one needs repotting pretty fast, and this one will need, I'm not sure if I'm gonna change the pot, but it will definitely need rearranging. I need these roots to go into the medium, otherwise we're gonna end up like the Cattleya situation from a few years ago, if you remember, when it was a recovering Cattleya and the new growth created roots only, you know, at the top, and it was just getting dehydrated, and if I would have left it, it would have died because it was suffering. Not the case with this one necessarily. We have quite a few older pseudobulbs. But if I let this go on, it's not gonna end well. And this is something you need to keep in mind, especially with either recovering orchids, either orchids that are very thirsty. These guys, they need to have their roots in contact with moisture. And by the way, I'm referring to home conditions or any environment that is not, let's say, an irrigated environment. If you cannot make sure your orchids are properly watered and irrigated on a timer multiple times a day and so on, then this should not happen. So yeah, living room situations, not good. Typically our homes are quite dry for these orchids, which is fine. We don't want molds in our homes, absolutely not. Especially if you have birds, oh my gosh. Yeah, we're still continuing the treatment with Rosie and her aspergillosis, but it's okay. We do not, I repeat, do not want molds in our homes, so be careful with that. But anyway, even if your home is rather dry, with many orchids that are easy to grow in a home, you can just mitigate this by making sure that the roots, and especially new roots that grow from an orchid, go inside the medium. They have contact with the medium, with the sphagnum moss, with the water, because that means that you don't have to water multiple times a day. You can water it once, have that medium be wet, and deliver the water for multiple days, which is the whole point of the potting system. It's just our way to make sure our orchids stay hydrated in our dry homes. Because it's how it is, it's not nature. So yeah, if you have these types of orchids, I would suggest you intervene sooner rather than later. Even if the medium is not spoiled, you don't have to change the medium and do a full repot. Just make sure that the roots are going to be inside the medium. And I'm actually gonna take you along for these two. I'll put them both in one video. I'm gonna address them. Side note, there is no more bark in my country at all. I found something, but it's very, very like tiny. I don't know, they're not importing it. I don't know what's going on. It is what it is. It's a small country. Things like this happen. So I'll be working with sphagnum moss for a while. Yeah, we'll see if I can purchase it from somewhere else. But yeah, I was purchasing that bark because I didn't have to pay shipping and stuff. But now, yeah, I don't know. I might have to switch again to full sphagnum moss. Who knows? Who knows at this point? I'm at the mercy of the market. But anyway, I'm gonna take you along and we're gonna take care of these two orchids in a separate video because I think it's gonna be an interesting video. And lastly, let's talk habanerias. My eternal problems, not with all of them. Let's start with the good news. Habenaria carnea is already growing. Can we see? It has a nice little shoot here. The thing is though, I need to change the pot because it's really tiny and I think the corm inside is really outgrowing this pot. This one needs a change as well. This one didn't sprout just yet. This is the other Habenaria rhodocilla or... oh, what was the name? I forget. Maybe that was the name. Anyway, the habanerias, these two, I'm not worried. I didn't touch them. I didn't mess up the corms. One of them sprouted. These guys I've had for a number of years and they come back, so I'm not really all that worried. As long as I don't massacre the corms like I did in the past, everything should be okay. We're good. Now we get to the one I am worried about, the radiata, is it? Again, I'm gonna make sure to put the names on the screen because I don't know what's happening to my tags. They just disappear. Anyway, so we did actually make a video on this. I need to revisit the video and see the state of that corm. I dug up the corm just to see. And I don't know. It's still here. This is the corm. If I press a little on it, I don't know. I don't want to press too much. Feels to me a little more deflated. Maybe I'm just imagining things. I kept it dry all of this time and I've decided to just moisten it mildly. You can see everything is still dry, but I moistened it mildly. Maybe I can make it wake up, or maybe, you know, it got a little too dehydrated. I don't know. It's been dormant for a while. So I decided to put it a little bit more on top just to keep an eye on it. The part that actually had the growth last year, it fell off. So yeah, that was the old corm, which is okay. So the old growth came from the old corm. They lose corms once a year. So this is the new corm that it grew last year. So I'm not like done with it just yet. I'm just worried because it happened to me twice, I think in the past, to lose this particular orchid. And I don't know what it is with these guys. I kind of, you know, I let them be. I don't fuss with them because that's how I go about decimating them. But I don't know. I really don't know. I'm so worried about this one. So I didn't do anything. I just let it be. I was a good girl. But now looking at it, you know, it was a little dry. It was so dry and felt a little papery. I don't want to say it. Maybe I'm wrong. So I just moistened it mildly, just very mildly. And I'm not going to moisten it for the next week. I'm going to wait another week and see what happens. P.S. If you do a little bit of this, it's probably not going to happen. Nothing bad will happen because I did it with these guys as well. When they weren't waking up, I started to water them and they woke up. The way that I lost the other corms was like properly soaking them and watering them. That was bad. This is just, that's why I also put it on top. It's just a little bit moistened. It will dry super fast. It's not going to stay moist or anything. I just wanted to hydrate mildly, just mildly. So we're going to see if this works. But needless to say, I don't know what's happening and what I'm doing wrong, if I'm doing anything wrong, if it's gonna survive. I don't know anything and it's really frustrating. You know, just when you think you have the care down for something or a particular species, there's that one individual that is like, nope, I do not want to behave. I do not like your face, possibly. So I'm just not gonna grow for you, and that is that. I hope I'm just overreacting now. If you have this particular orchid, let me know your experience, what's happening with it. I'm gonna make sure to put all of the names on the tags properly on the screen because I might just confuse the names or, you know, when you see them written, it's much better, right? So let me know if you have this orchid, how is it behaving for you? Should I be worried? Should I do something else? I don't know. I really don't know. So yeah, with these ones though, I'm not worried. I really do like the Carnea. She has beautiful leaves and she's really easy going. Even though I mess up the corms and I partially break them, they come back, you know? This one on the other hand, she's a fussy lady. Anyway, so that is about it for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. We will come back to regular schedule as soon as we can. Rosie's not in the room anymore. Good news, I don't know if I mentioned this. Oh, I didn't. In my last video, I think I showed you her. So her tests came out good. She doesn't have any viruses, anything that she can pass on to our other parrot or to us. She is actually clean. She's good. The thing is, she does have aspergillosis, which doesn't transfer because it's a disease that develops when parrots inhale mold spores. That's why I'm like so with mold. Just don't have it in your home. It can affect you as well, but like right now I'm dealing with such a horrible situation with poor Rosie just because she inhaled mold spores. Anyway, so yeah, it doesn't pass on to us or to the other parrots. So we moved her downstairs. We were, you know, thinking maybe we should get a smaller cage for her. But actually, no, the cage we got is good because she has a very big wingspan. And she does do her antics. Sometimes she flaps a little bit her wings. She's blind, she doesn't fly, but she does stretch her wings. She flaps them a little bit. She goes actually and plays with toys. The doctor was very surprised. She goes and explores a little bit her surroundings and she found the toys and she knows what the toys is because she wasn't always blind. And she just spends an hour just chewing on the toys. So it's good, but she is downstairs. I cleaned up a little bit the place here. I only bring her here, you know, for the nebulizer and everything because it's very loud. But other than that, yeah, we're back to normal. We can film here and, you know, talk about the orchids without disturbing Rosie or anything. We will get into making videos a little bit more often because, yeah, I don't have Rosie here and I don't have to work around her all that much. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me today. Hope you didn't, you know, abandon me. I will try to come back, and also on the Aquarium channel, I will try to come back. And with that said, I hope you'll have a great day. Can't wait to hear from you in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye!